Hello everybody, and welcome back to Ideology Explained. Today we're talking about socialism. And much like with anarchism, this is a very broad topic, so I will only go over the basics. All of the ideologies I mention here eventually deserve their own video, so please don't be angry with me for not mentioning one single one in detail. Very basically, socialism can be summed up as a system in which the means of production are owned by the community or by the workers. That meets practically all definitions I'm aware of. There are two main parts to socialism, that being the economic and political part. We'll start with the economics. Basically, socialism requires the workers to own the means of production. You may now be asking, what is a means of production? And I would tell you, good question. The means of production are the things you need to use to be able to do your job. That can be a camera if you're a photographer, industrial machinery if you work in the heavy industry, or a computer that can run an editing software if you're a YouTuber. In most cases, nowadays, people don't own their means of production themselves, and instead use the means of production of an employer. The idea behind socialism is that those means of production dictate much about your life, so you should have a say in how they are run, and not just have to listen to someone else who happens to own them for now. For example, I 100% control the means I use to create this video. But when I worked in the heavy industry, I had no control whatsoever about how the company would be run. Despite the fact that I very much had a stake in that, because how well the boss managed the factory dictated how much I and my colleagues had to work overtime to keep the company afloat. So, under socialism, everyone is supposed to have a say in how their workplace is run. That's all socialism means. People having a say in how their means of production are managed. This can be achieved in many different ways. There are worker cooperatives which democratically decide what to do. These are most commonly supported nowadays. There are union-run workplaces, which is more of a syndicalist thing. And the classical one, which most nowadays see as antiquated, is state control over the means of production. That system is then called state socialism. The logic behind that is that the state, which ideally is democratic, represents the working class, and therefore the state owning the means of production equals the workers owning the means of production. Many modern socialists oppose this because it doesn't change much in the life of the average worker. And some even go as far as to say that that's why the Soviet Union failed. Nowadays, you will tend to see people support worker co-ops instead. This, by definition, is all that socialism is. And because of that, we can also learn what isn't socialism. For example, fascism, aka National Socialism, as they called it rather deceptively. It is not socialism because it does not and did not give the workers the means of production. The Nazis actually privatized like crazy. I'm not sure who or why started the myth that the Nazis were socialists, but it's wrong in every way. And furthermore, someone giving you free healthcare is not socialism either, because it does not change who owns the means of production. No, Sanders is not a socialist, not if you use the word correctly and in the way socialists themselves use it. So far, I've left out the distinction between a system of production and a system of distribution. So, let's make that distinction now. A system of production is part of an economic system that dictates how things are produced. For example, in capitalism, things are produced by privately owned businesses, while in socialism it's worker-controlled businesses. But the conditions in which these things are produced have no influence on how they are distributed. That's the job of the system of distribution. When speaking about capitalism, we usually mean free market capitalism. That is, capitalism for production and a free market for distribution. There are other systems of distribution, like a centrally planned economy, a decentrally planned economy, or an AI planned economy, all of which I've made videos about already. And crucially, because socialism is not a system of distribution, but of production, you can pair it with any system of distribution. You can have centrally planned socialism. You can have decentrally planned socialism. You can have market socialism. All of those are possible and supported by different people. Historically, only centrally planned socialism has seen any wide-scale use, despite the fact that most modern socialists don't like it. So, please be aware that when someone calls themselves socialists, they aren't usually talking about the historic socialism of the Soviet Union and such, because the Soviet Union had both state ownership over the means of production as well as a centrally planned economy. which most socialists nowadays disagree with. I said I would talk about socialism as a political system as well, and that's a tough question, because what a socialist government is even harder to pinpoint than what a socialist economy is. I can tell you what it isn't. Voting for a self-proclaimed socialist in a capitalist democracy does not turn the government into a socialist one. According to Marx, socialism was the stepping stone towards communism and would be a so-called dictatorship of the proletariat, which is very badly named because it's not about the literal dictatorship. It's about exclusive rule of the proletariat, and if you want to know what that means, watch my video on Marxism. There are, of course, different ways this can be achieved. For example, excluding the bourgeoisie, aka the capitalists, from democracy could be one way this could be achieved. But you could also abolish states altogether and create socialist communes. From democracy to actual dictatorships, everything could be considered some form of socialism, depending on what definition you want to listen to. Really, socialism as a political system is not a thing that is defined. It's so broad as to be close to meaningless. Socialism is primarily an economic system, not a political one. So anyone can interpret anything into that, and it's usually not helpful to think about a government as a socialist one, since that can mean anything. You can call the Soviet government socialist, you can call the Norwegian government socialist, you can call the English government socialist, and you can call the American government socialist. The problem is that nobody really knows what that would mean anyways. Much like if you called them capitalist governments. My advice is, don't use the word socialist to describe a government. Use it to describe an economy, because that's what it's there for. So, now you hopefully have a better understanding of what people mean when they call themselves socialists. Thanks for watching. See ya. Thanks to my patrons for making me make videos, and special thanks to Darius the Bird, Noah, The Doctor, Tortoise, Aaron J. Patton, Generkis77, Morally Conflicted Tortoise, Tyler Dang, and Spear for your generous donations.